conducted remotely so that board and committee members, as well as members of the public, can participate remotely. I would like to take a quick moment here while calling to order just to recognize Member Dack, who is now officially Member Dack. And good luck on your forthcoming election.
Thank you.
Moving down the list, we have public comments. Anything from the public? Anything from anybody on the board?
I think it might be appropriate for you to also remind that we still have the opening on the associate member. I know it has been posted, but it might be good for you to.
Yep, that's definitely thrown out for the public. We do still have an open for an associate member. Just for the benefit of the public, the planning board, although it seems boring at times, is probably the most important organization for the long-term direction of the town. All economic development starts with zoning, and everything that happens 15, 20 years down the road is going to be dictated by zoning today. So we do have an opening. Please consider applying. Any requests for additional information can go to the land use clerk or to the town administrator. So please consider it. It's a meaningful job. All right. Anything else for public comment? Moving on to a public hearing. I always forget. Do we need the vote to open a public
Yes.
hearing?
Yes.
All right, so I am asking for a motion to open the public hearing for, regarding the following proposed changes to Article 20 of the Hubbardston zoning bylaw, use of large-scale photovoltaic installations. 1, increase the minimum lot size to 5 acres. 2, additional required documents for site plan review. 3, modified requirements for setback, screening, fencing, dark sky compliant lighting. And 4, prohibition on the use of pesticides or herbicides. Copies of the actual language of the proposed amendments have been available for review on the town website for weeks.
I will make that motion, sir.
Excellent.
I will second the motion.
Hearing a first and a second. Any discussion? Let's have a vote.
Holman's aye.
Steiger, aye?
Demalia, aye.
Dack, aye.
And the chair is aye. The public meeting is open. So just to talk about the background here, this is something we've been working on for years. Because in the process of doing the last few large-scale solar special permits, we've noticed that there were some issues in the law that we needed to address in order to better protect the community and make the special process a little more orderly. We also needed to update the language for battery energy storage systems. And although that bylaw is still currently hung up with the State Attorney General's office for reasons that defy me in all logic, we've incorporated the changes from that best bylaw into the terminology that is used in this one. So unless there's any specific questions, I'm just going to walk down the memorandum on the highlights.
May I quickly?
Absolutely.
Did Mark,
I have on paper.
did you have a conversation with the chair regarding that one item?
We talked about it in concept, we didn't talk about the details of what our conclusion was.
Gotcha. Okay, so when we get to that, we can certainly refer to it.
Okay. So the article, we are here tonight to get feedback from the public and to discuss this potential article to be placed on the town meeting warrant for 06/06/2023. And we are asking if the town will vote to amend Article 20 of the zoning bylaws by amending language in several places. So the first place is within definitions. It is 20.2.2. We are replacing reference to building commissioner with building inspector.
I believe it's the other way around.
Building inspector with building commissioner.
Thank you.
We're doing the same thing at
Right.
20.2.3. In 20.2.5, we are adding language at the end that specifies a large-scale ground-mounted solar photovoltaic installation may also include a battery energy storage system. We're adding language afterwards in order to specify the definition, which is a battery energy storage system. A device that reserves energy for later consumption that is charged by a connected solar system. The stored electricity is consumed after sundown, during energy demand peaks, or during a power outage. I had one quick question there. Battery energy storage system doesn't necessarily have to be connected to solar.
It does not. It is, however, something that is quite conceivable, and the very first example of a battery energy storage system that we have here in town that is of large scale is actually associated with a solar field, which is the one on Williamsville Road.
So do we want to specify in the definition here that battery energy storage system equals a device that reserves energy for later consumption that is charged by a connected solar system?
So I was gonna make that comment because the battery energy storage system also has been defined in an earlier part, so that was a comment that I had. So I just wanna make sure that we are, to your point, putting it in the context of the large-scale solar here.
I'll give you a reason why you might want to do that.
I'm sorry, do what?
Leave it here, defined in this article, as well as in Article
Correct.
23, the real BESS system. But we're gonna be in a pickle if we still haven't received approval from the AG on Article 23 by the time the revisions have to go to press for town meeting. As it's written right now, BESS would stand alone in this Article 20. There are no references being made to Article 23. You will be good to go with this article if you just leave it as is.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, and I think it's pertinent to keep this in the two places. The only thing that I would suggest here, in order to, once the Attorney General's office comes back with their final decision on the other bylaw, assuming it is fully adopted, that we define this particular component of BESS as applicable, as the component that is applicable to large-scale solar systems. So that's the only difference. The fact is that we have two definitions, right? And we just gotta make sure that this definition, which is not dissimilar to the one that we have in the previous section, but that this one here is very specific to the solar fields. If there's some wording that we can add in here to ensure that this specifies it for this purpose and this purpose only, that is fine. But understanding that they are really both the same.
Well,
I think
I
that's.
know this is something we need to.
The language tying it to the solar
Right.
system is what you were questioning
Yeah,
initially.
yes, so then it sounds like that is language that we need, specifically stating that charged by a connection to a solar system. So-
Correct. But we gotta make sure that we're not indicating by doing so that we are only allowing battery energy storage systems for large-scale solar. I just wanna make sure that it does not come down to a point
As
later
long
on where
as-
somebody says battery energy storage
As
systems.
long as you covered that ground in Article 23, which I don't
Yeah.
know off the
Gen-
top of my
well,
head.
And that's why we have an attorney here.
Well, generally for statutory statutory construction, you use the definition from the section you're in.
Very good.
Unless that doesn't exist, then you go to a different section.
Very good.
Okay.
That sounds great.
Makes sense.
I would leave it then as is.
Okay.
I would like to jump back though,
Yeah.
on the previous one, which is 20.2.5. You do have after the word BESS, you have number 78. I think that 78 has to go in front of where all of the amendments and changes are, because those amendments were made only for section 2.2.5 for the sections that were applicable prior to the large-scale energy systems being put in place.
Got it.
Thank you. We just wanna make sure that we're not confusing the two, because afterwards,
Right.
if this gets adopted, then we'll have a second,
79,
we'll have a 79 probably here.
yeah. Right.
Okay, so that clears us through that. So then the next several items, we're just adjusting the line numbering until we get to 20.2.12,
It's actually 13.
which is now 13, 20.2.13, where we are increasing the minimum lot size from 80,000 to 217,800 square feet. And then changing some of the setback language. 20.3.1 compliance with all laws, ordinances, and regulation. We're including language referencing the best bylaw as something that needs to be complied with.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate here.
Mhm.
If perchance, and I'm not hoping that it happens, but if perchance the battery energy storage system gets struck down completely, then we're making reference here to BESS and all of those elements that are the compliance and laws and ordinances, et cetera, including BESS, would be no longer available to us. Is that?
Nope, because
Well,
statutory
it would just be
construction,
as defined.
we're using
Defined in
best
the
as
code.
defined here. Yep.
Under 20.2.6.
Where I'm going though with this here is we put in the BESS some very comprehensive list of regulations, ordinances, and so forth, which would therefore be applicable here, and that's what I think was referenced here.
Yeah, see, I think that's an easy tweak to do once we actually get this back from the Attorney General's office, or rather we get best back from the Attorney General's office.
Fine,
Because really, there probably should be some specific references, but
okay?
we don't have them. All right, so moving down to the site plan review section, we go into required documents. We are adding to V, documentation of the major system components to be used, including the PV panels, mounting system, inverter, and BESS, with technical specifications of the major system components, including the solar arrays, mounting system, electrical equipment, and other supporting equipment and structures. Then further down, we are adding to the documentation requirements, drawings, photographs, and study showing color renderings not less than 1 inch equals 50 feet, showing sightline views from abutting streets and properties of the proposed installation. Color aerial view both before and after proposed installation, showing tree coverage and buffer zone not less than 1 inch equals 50 feet. A glare analysis and proposed mitigation, if any, to minimize the impact of glare on affected properties and roads. Then there are some formatting changes and some number changes. Moving down, we go to the next substantive change, which is operation and maintenance plan. We are adding the language that reads, "This plan shall include measures for maintaining year-round safe access for emergency vehicles, snow plowing, storm water controls, and general procedures for operating and maintaining the energy facility, including the fencing, fire access roads, and landscaping. Use of pesticides and herbicides is prohibited." Moving on to dimension and density requirements, we are modifying the setbacks, where the front yard setback will now be 100 feet, the side yard will now be 75 feet, and the rear yard will now be 75 feet. Next is solar panels and appurtenant structure.
Let's stay here for a moment.
Okay.
Francois, take it away.
So this is where Mark and I had some conversations. There is a line here that I think is left over really more as a comment, where it says screening/buffering may require greater setbacks, see section 20.3.2 parenthesis C.
Mhm.
I would propose that is, again, that was left over from the days when we were discussing this here, and as a result of this here, we made the adjustments to the setbacks, and therefore this is no longer required and can be struck.
That makes sense to me.
Okay?
Alright, so, Mark, can you note that in the minutes, that if we vote, that will be we will take that out on the version we're voting?
Yep.
Alright, so if there's no other questions on that, solar panels and pertinent structures and fencing, we added the words "in fencing" to the title, and added best facilities to the list of pertinent structures. We've also added a section for fencing. Fencing shall not be greater than 8 feet in height and shall surround the entire field, shall be a place 4 inches off the ground to allow for migration of wildlife. Solid fencing may also be required if necessary to adequately screen view of the facility. And fencing shall consist of a commercial grade, high quality HF40 or better framework, galvanized chain link ends, corners, and posts. The planning board may require additional measures such as coated galvanized fencing and screening bands or luminized chain link.
I'm gonna make one additional change on item B. It shall be placed.
Okay, I was gonna ask that.
Yeah. Anything else? Alright, moving down, design standards, lighting. We've added that it needs to comply with the dark sky standard, which is, shall comply with international dark sky standards, FSA certification requirements. For the public, what that means is that the light fixtures that are installed where necessary need to face the ground and not spill unnecessary light towards the sky. And we also add that there shall be no illumination without personnel on the site.
There's also a typo on FSA certification requirements. I'll be adding the R.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else in that section? Alright, so we're moving down to safety and environmental standards. We're asking for a change to 20.3.10.2, which is the land clearing, soil erosion, habitat impact screening requirement section. We are removing the sentence, except where such vegetation would shade the solar energy system. However, in no event shall clearing of existing vegetation and setbacks exceed half the required setback width. And for the benefit of the public, we're eliminating that because that turned out to be a giant loophole for setbacks and vegetation in the buffer zone, because it essentially entitled someone building a solar field to be able to cut the trees back if they were casting a shadow on any of the panels.
Right.
So it functionally made it so we didn't have buffering. Moving down in the monitoring and maintenance section, we added, including the addition of BESS to the material modification section, or material modifications clause, I suppose that is. We have introduced references to BESS in 20.3.12, but did not make any other substantial changes. And in 20.3.12.3, we have removed building inspector and replaced it with building commissioner. And that is the list of changes. So does anybody else have anything they would like to talk about or add? Yep.
Mr. Chair.
Please
could you-
identify yourself for the record.
Certainly, Mike Stahl, 5 Lombard Road, thank you. You mentioned at the start there, 80,000 square foot to a new number. Under what cases was that for? Was that for residential, or, I didn't catch that part, and what was the new number?
That is for all large-scale solar
Oh,
voltaic.
solar, okay.
Yeah.
And it makes it 5 acres instead of 2.
Yeah,
Right.
I did the math.
Yep.
Okay, that's the 217,000-ish number.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this does not apply to like a homeowner size system, it only applies to grid scale, so. Any other questions or comments? So then, if there aren't any other questions or comments, I believe we need a motion to recommend this as presented with the changes, to be placed on the town warrant with the recommendation of the planning board.
Do we first come out of the,
Yeah, we're gonna need to do that first, that's a good point.
One of them.
How about a motion to leave, the public hearing?
I make that motion.
I second the motion?
Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, let's have a vote.
Holman's eye.
Steiger, aye?
Demelia, aye.
Jack, aye.
The chair is aye, we are out of, I am closing the public hearing. All right, so now we have,
Make that motion.
Alice should.
I know.
Mr. Chair, at this point in time, I would like to make a motion that we accept the amendments that were presented during the hearing as modified, and that we vote on presenting this here to the, I believe it will be the select board, right? Is the-
we need to,
That we approve it, and then,
Yeah,
and that it be then presented to the select board for
Yep.
their continued shepherding this here all the way up to the town meeting.
and that we recommend the article.
And that
Or
we
do
do
want
recommend
that
the
as a
article,
separate
yes.
vote?
You can roll it all together.
Okay, and that we recommend the article.
And that we recommend the article,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, I'll second whatever that was.
Here in a first and a second, any discussion? Alright, let's have a vote.
Holman's eye.
Steiger, aye.
Demelia, aye.
Jack, aye.
And the chair is aye.
And I should have put it as part of the discussion. I just wanted to really comment that this was highly needed, because I think there was a lot of loopholes here and a lot of disgruntled individuals in town, so I still think that there's more improvements, but these are the big gaping
It's a big
holes, so.
step.
So, and no small work done by our former chair and former member of the planning board, Alice Lipdahl, who I really appreciate and thank for having also contributed enormously to this work.
I very much agree with that. Administrative matters, approval of planning board reports recommending zoning bylaw amendments.
So we should do the same
So-
thing you just did with recommending, you've already approved all the language.
Yeah, we approved the language, but we didn't actually have a vote to recommend the zoning, miscellaneous zoning bylaw amendments. So, we need somebody to make a motion.
I'll make that motion.
That we recommend it. Okay,
I'll second.
you're in a first and a second, how about discussion? All right, let's have a vote.
Holman's eye.
Steiger, aye.
Demelia, aye.
Jack, aye.
And the chair votes aye. The board recommends the miscellaneous amendments. All right, discussion of completion status for a master plan and open space recreational plan. Nate is now actively working on the facility chapters of the master plan with Josh and Travis. They're gonna report back, once it is moving along, but we have an agreement with MRPC to finish it out, and we're working to try to come up with something insightful. They're just having their first initial meeting on it, which is why the board hasn't yet been brought in. They're just working on the connection phase. The open space recreation plan, Mark, can you comment on this?
Yeah, I'll throw a comment in here. So in parallel with the work on the master plan, at least in this last leg of the work on the master plan, we're doing an update to the open space and recreational plan, which covers a lot of the same ground in some chapters at any rate. With regard to the master plan, Jonathan Voss is supposed to be submitting the most recent copies to you soon. So I would expect to be thinking about them next meeting or the meeting after that. But one of the things we need to, or you need to think about is whether you want to make any substantive changes to some of the chapters that are now 4 years old, 5 years old. The data the material that's covered in the open space and recreational plan, things like the amount of chapter 61 land in town, the amount of permanent protection land in town, things like that, also appear in the master plan, but they're not accurate. We actually have accurate data in the current, or the, the 90% draft version of the open space recreational plan. So you can think about it at that point, whether you wanna make some updates to the material that you've already approved way back when.
So-
Not on the master plan.
So my personal opinion on this, and not specifically speaking as the chair, is that we should look at what the open space committee comes out with and essentially consider incorporating it as a new chapter to replace the one that's in the master plan. Because I suspect that what we get out of open spaces process is going to be a lot more thought out and is gonna have more specific goals. If I was to have any criticism of the open space plan that MRPC put together and that we previously approved, it's that the goals didn't have a lot of insight to them. They were all obvious things like improve signage. There weren't specific goals for really moving things forward. So I like to see us take this as an opportunity to perhaps upgrade what we have going on. Excellent timing. We're actually just talking about the
Talking about me?
Yep, we're talking about you. We're talking about the open space and recreational plan.
Yep.
And we were just saying that, that I was expressing that it would be my opinion that we should consider taking what you have as an output and using that to update the open space recreation chapter of the master plan so that we can all
Yeah.
be on the same page. and be working
Absolutely.
with the same data.
Absolutely. I know,
Sorry, and we need you to identify yourself for the record, because we're in session.
Bob Hatch, Chair of the Open Space Committee. Yeah, I know, a year or two ago, they used a lot of the material from that open space ban, because they looked at it and said, boy, there's a ton of material here that we can just steal, duplicate, use for the, what was, I guess, a master plan at that point in time. So, yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Awesome, and we do send a representative to that committee, to the Open Space Recreational Plan Committee. If the board would see fit, I would like to volunteer for that myself, and be the liaison to that committee. I don't think we actually need a vote to approve that, but
No.
if anybody really wanted to, we can.
Yeah.
And if anybody
It's an
really.
okey-dokey.
If anybody really wants to do it, we can arm wrestle for it.
Thanks.
Out of curiosity, and I'm sorry to interject here, is there anything in there that makes very specific reference to the amount of space that has been, that is owned by the state?
Yeah.
Specifically for the purposes of watershed?
Oh, yeah.
I'm not talking about like, land for conservation, things of that nature,
No,
but
no,
very
no.
specifically for
Yeah,
watershed.
no, it breaks it down, and Mike conducted this too, but it breaks it down into a variety of different categories. It's got chapter 61 land.
Yep.
It identifies, just relative to DCR, it identifies
Okay.
watershed, parks and rec, wildlife.
Yeah.
So it's got information on all those different categories.
Okay. The reason I'm mentioning this here, I think this is gonna be very important because of some of the discussions that we have had and the subject of pilot,
Yeah.
the payment in lieu of taxes, that
Yep.
I think at this point in time is probably going to be surfacing as a very important subject
I
at the state level.
I believe so
And the
too.
and the funding, and the lack of funding that towns like ours are getting for the benefit of the greater majority of residents in the state of Massachusetts, which is great. But we are kind of getting a little bit of a short stick, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is, by my assessment.
We've been invaded.
One of, one of the most important issues in the town, and it's kind of a sleeper of an issue.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
our relationship with open space and our relationship with the state through pilot money is probably the single most defining issue that we have as a town, because it impacts our school budget, it impacts
Absolutely.
everything we do with zoning. And I would like to see open space, as a committee and an organization supported as thoroughly as possible with town resources. Because if people wanna complain about, well, why can't we pay for the school, what's our tax base, what we're doing for economic development? Well, we got a lot of open space that we can
Yep.
protect and get people invested in and really generate a lot of value for the community, so.
Yep.
It's a no-brainer to me.
And the benefit that the larger metropolitan area gets for the quality of the water that stems not only from this community here in Hubbardston, but other communities that are joining us, is tremendous. And if anything, it has been accentuated much, much more so in the last decade as scarce water resources are becoming a big issue, not only worldwide, but also at the local level. We hear a lot about issues where communities and towns are now having to think about where it is that they're getting their water, and the whole issue of PFAS and the quality of water is a huge issue. And the impact that it has on a community such as ours, which really does not have any other forms of revenue sources, potentially not being able to develop this land, which again, we appreciate what the benefits are, but not being reciprocated with compensation for that. And us as citizens having to bear the burden for this here economically, I think is certainly something that needs to be explored and brought up.
Absolutely.
I think some of that's gonna be outside the scope of the open space plan, but they are certainly some of the most critical
The
issues we
input,
have.
I think, that comes from the open
Yeah.
space is very important, I think, and that's why I'm trying to accentuate here. It's not
Yep.
that it's your responsibility to accentuate that, but basically, we appreciate the fact that you're highlighting this here and giving that level of information, that then bodies like ours, bodies like the select board, and more importantly, the town administrator can take, then we can work with other towns who are similarly impacted by this here.
Yep.
Thank you.
So, open space is here for the room, not just because they like us and want to
Ah, we're being kicked out.
Well, we're not being kicked out yet, but with that said, are there any matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair or any additional public comments?
No.
All right, well, I guess just for a quick update on administrative matter, we received an application for a special permit. It is for a cell tower.
Mhm.
We're currently I am currently working with the staff to figure out how we're gonna be approaching this from a consulting standpoint, what we're gonna do in-house, what we're gonna work with our consultants, so we can try to come up with an estimate for the applicant. But that's where we're at for that, so we have a special permit on deck that we're gonna need to deal with soon.
Have you already targeted a potential date for review?
We need to.
I'm asking because of the closeness that we have for the town meeting, and I do understand
Yep.
that there's some changes that are coming in place.
There's certainly some issues, we're trying to figure out how that's gonna work from a staffing level at this point.
All right, thanks.
All right, so if there's nothing else, then how about a motion?
I would like to present a motion that we close this meeting of the planning board.
Okay, how about
I'll
a
second.
second? Here in a first and a second, non-debatable, let's have a vote,
Woman's eye.
Steiger, aye?
Denali, aye.
Jack, aye.
and the chair is aye.
Thank
We
you
are
very much.
adjourned at
7:06?
7:06.
So we're officially kicked out?
Well, I'm gonna hang around.
Yeah, now you're kicked
Oh,
out.
gonna talk about
Now
some
we're being
planning
kicked out.
board stuff, but yeah.
All right, before everybody split,